Hello Huskies, this is Mr. Coward. I hope you're having a great week so far. Today we're going to be looking at solving equations. So we're going to kind of start with a simple equation. This is something that you should have seen before. So we're going to kind of refresh our memory on a few processes before we get started into a little bit more complicated. So I have an equation written down here, 2x equals 6. So when we have an equation, we know we're always trying to figure out what the variable is. So this is our variable. So that's what we're looking to solve for. So in the end, we know we have to have x is equal to something, whatever our number is. So let's get this off here so we can continue on. All right, so to start solving this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my line down from my equal sign. So I know whatever I do on this side, I have to do on the other. That's not an option. We have to keep it equal. So whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. We're going to do this and solve this by using our inverse operations. So remember, our inverse operations are our opposites. So I'll use both words, inverse and opposites. Just remember that it's kind of the same thing. When we're talking about solving an equation, it's really essentially the same thing. So let's take a look. When we have a number that is right beside our variable, what does that mean to do? So when they're side by side, this is telling us to multiply. So anytime we have that 2 beside the x, that tells us to multiply. So if we're wanting to multiply, or if we're having to multiply, we want to find that inverse operation. So we want to find that opposite. So what's the opposite of multiplying? Our opposite of multiplying would be to divide. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 2. Now we can't just divide by 2 on one side. We have to divide by 2 on both sides. This cancels out, leaving us with just x is equal to, and then we have 6 divided by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So x is equal to 3. So that's how we solve our equation. Now we could double check this. We're going to start with that original equation, 2, but instead of putting the x, we're going to put the 3 there, and that's going to be equal to 6. So 2 times 3 does equal 6, so we know that we got that correct. Get rid of this here. So now let's look at a different equation. Let's look at x minus 5. That's not minus. X minus 5 is equal to 8. So if we had the equation x minus 5 is equal to 8. So remember our first step. We want to solve for x. So we have to get rid of whatever is on the same side as x. So I need to get rid of this minus 5. So in order to get rid of that minus 5, I have to do my inverse operation. So my inverse operation, what is the opposite of a minus 5? What's the inverse of minus 5? So we're going to draw our line down. Our inverse would be plus 5. So we're going to put a z, because those zero out. Minus 5 plus 5, or negative 5 plus 5, is equal to 0. I'm going to bring my x down. Now I can't just do that because that's not solving my equation. Because I put a plus 5 on this side, so I have to put a plus 5 on this side. Remember, what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So 8 plus 5 is 13. So that gives me the answer of x is equal to 13. I can double check this. So I have 13 minus 5 is equal to 8. And if we work that out, yes, that is correct. And that is how we would get that. So remember our inverse operations. Inverse of multiplying, dividing. Inverse of adding is subtracting. Inverse of dividing is multiplying. Inverse of subtracting is adding. So that's our inverse operations, or our opposite operations. So now let's move to a two-step, just a little bit more complicated. So we have 4x plus 3 is equal to 15. So 4x plus 3 is equal to 15. Well, to start solving this, let's draw our line down from our equal sign. So it reminds us what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So my goal is to get x by itself. So I still need to get x by itself. So to start solving this, I've got to get rid of the easiest one to move. So the easiest one to get rid of is my plus 3. This is the easiest one to move. That's the one I want to move first. So what is the inverse of a plus 3? Minus 3. So what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to bring my 4x down. This zeroes out. A positive 3 minus 3 is 0, so that zeroes out. The other side, 15 minus 3 is 12. So I still don't have x by itself. That's still there. It still has a number attached to it. So that number attached to it, is that telling us to do, or what is that telling us to do? That's right, that's telling us to multiply this. So 4 times x. So what is the inverse of multiplying times 4? So our inverse is to divide by 4. So what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So now our 4's cancel out and leaves us x on this side. And that's going to be equal to 12 divided by 4 is 3. So x is equal to 3. So 4 times 3 plus 3 is equal to 15. So we check that. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. So that one checks out also. All right, let's look at one more real quick. Get rid of all of this. All right, here we go. So let's look at x divided by 4 minus 2 is equal to 10. So x over 4 minus 2 is equal to 10. So our first step is, remember we want to draw our line down. Once we have our line, we've got to start doing the inverse operations. So what is the inverse of a minus 2? That's the easiest one to get rid of. So inverse of a minus 2. So that would be our plus 2. So what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So our negative 2 plus 2, that zeroes out. We bring down our x over 4 is equal to 10 plus 2 is 12. So now we're still trying to solve for x. We still don't have x on the side by itself. So what's the inverse of x over 4, or x divided by 4? So that would be to multiply times 4. So we need to multiply both sides times 4. You'll see this written all different ways, but I like to do my 4 times out in front. And then what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. These cancel out and leave us x. Next we have 12 times 4. So 12 times 4 is 48. So to check that, 48 divided by 4 minus 2 is equal to 10. So 48 divided by 4 is 12, minus 2 is 10. So this checks out and is correct. So make sure you're always doing your inverse operations. If you're doing your inverse operations, it will not matter. You will always get the correct answer. So if you follow your inverse operations, it does not matter. It doesn't matter either what side the x is on. So if the x was on the other side, you could still solve it. So if it was 10 equals 2 plus 4x, you're going to solve this the exact same way. You're going to bring your line down. When you bring your line down, then you're going to get rid of this positive 2. The x is on the other side. So we're still trying to get rid of x. I'm just going to leave it on my right-hand side. So a positive 2, we would subtract 2 from both sides. That's the opposite of our positive 2. So this cancels out, those 0 out. So now I have 8 is equal to 4x. It's a positive 4x because there's a plus sign there. So 4 right beside the x, remember that tells me that those are being multiplied together. That's multiplying 4 times x. So the inverse of multiplying is going to be to divide. So I need to divide both sides by 4. That cancels out and leaves me with x is equal to 2. So when the x is on the other side, don't let it confuse you. Or the variable is on the other side, don't let it confuse you. It won't always be x. That's just the ones I picked for this. So don't let it throw you off. So we're going to end this video and you're going to have some practice. And then we will pick up with another video that will kind of work you through what we need to learn for this year. So stay tuned, keep working at it, make sure that you practice it, write it down, use paper. This is not something you can do in your head, so make sure you're working them out and doing your best. If you have any questions, please email us and we will help you out as quickly as possible. Thank you and have a good rest of your day.